that pretty much wraps up my Barnera, and enjoy. We're very privileged. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi. It was super nice to meet you. I actually knew his mom, and it warms my heart that there's a seminary that's named after her, that all the women who are kids in there. Warms my heart. I just want to tell you, it's really nice talking to you. For me, this is a little like coming home because I'm so connected to the people from this community, especially the Rabbi of Montreal. Actually, mine, it goes back, like you say, it goes back generations because the Rabbi of the Shul, Brink house, and my parents were very close to his parents, and I was speaking to my siblings, and I said, do you remember anything about the tenant houses, like, the Rabbi's parents? And they said, of course, and they said every Shabbos morning, the Rabbi's father would meet my father in Shul, and for years and years and years, they learned before Shul davening. He also taught in Bais Yaakov. He taught Latin and French. And the greatest story about him is that he taught in Bais Yaakov, but after Bais Yaakov, he taught in public school. And the story about him is that he actually would, for any boys that would put on tefillin, he would say, I'll give you extra credits. So, that was typical about it, great, but that's how kids got to put on tefillin in public school, because he gave them extra credits. And this is the home that the Rabbi of the Shul came from, a beautiful home that was very meticulous and very sharing in their Torah knowledge. And so it's really a pleasure. It feels like coming home a little and speaking in this community. So thank you for that. I just want to say one more thing before I speak, that I'm doing this speech in honor of my mom's memory. Next Saturday night, this coming Saturday night, Sunday, is her 10th Yortzeit, and she was a complete partner in all my father's learning. Nothing, my father could not have accomplished anything had he not been married to my mother. She really allowed him to be. I was one of 9 kids, so she took care of 9 kids, and I remember, the story was that my father used to teach at a school, and he would come home, and here was my mother, 9 kids at home. She didn't drive at the beginning, and my father would pass the bakery, and she would say, no, I'm not even going to ask Daddy to pick up any bread or cake for the kids at home, because I don't want to bother him. I want him just to get home and to be able to relax and to learn. So she really was, she protected him so much, and she really allowed him to become who he was. So today I just want to talk about 2 things. One is the story of my COVID experience, and the second is probably more important, which is what I learned from it. So Zell says the way to start a nice speech is always to say, it was a dark and rainy night in March 2019, right? I'm very bad with years, right? 2020, sorry, March 2020. And I had broken my sternum, which is super, super, super painful. And it was, I think, over a year and a half, and I hadn't found the right treatment for it, and it was super painful. And I said, you know what, I still have to keep going to doctors to find some treatment because it was very painful to my body. And so I went to a new doctor. Sal suggested I go to a new doctor. I went to a new doctor, and a few days later, I got a call from the public health department in Toronto, and it said, are you Rachel? And I said, yes. They said, were you at a doctor's office on Friday? I said, yeah. They said, well, we just have to inform you that somebody came down with COVID, so you were in contact with somebody with COVID. It was really, really at the beginning of COVID, just at the beginning, and honestly, it didn't even have much meaning to me. I thought, okay, COVID, but we heard so little about it in Toronto at that point. I think the only thing I heard is that there was a couple from the community that had it, and were both in bed healing from COVID, but that was it. I didn't hear anything else. So it was very unknown at that point, and I thought, okay, not great news. I don't like it, but it is what it is. And then I was home, and I started not to feel well. And ironically, when they say, everybody, did you lose your smell and your smell and taste? That was the only thing, actually, the only side effect I did not have. I did not lose that. But I came down with fever, and I couldn't keep food down. And, all the basic beginnings, you know what, maybe I do have COVID. So at some point, my husband and I said, you know what, let's go get tested. So we went to the hospital in Toronto, got tested, and we were told that both of us had COVID. And we thought, okay, fine. I was worried for my husband because he's asthmatic, and I thought like asthma is a really high risk. Like it's not a good thing to have asthma and to come down with COVID. And so I thought, oh my God, I hope he doesn't come down with it. Not thinking that like I, who was a healthy 61-year-old, like would come down with it. Like I thought like I'll make it through if I do come down. If I suffer from it, but him I really need to be careful with. Anyways, we both came down with COVID. I love to say that he, typical male, he had it for 3 minutes. He told me one night, I think I had it for 3 minutes. I had some chills. I thought you were so lucky, right? You know, like a woman who's too busy to even find 3 minutes to see she has the illness. But he had it for 3 minutes. And I then started to really, really suffer. I started with, lack of appetite. Then I couldn't eat. Then I came down with high fever. And I remember my kids were really concerned, and they sent a thermometer in my home. I had high fever. They sent an oximeter, which tests the oxygen level in blood. You put your finger in. I put my finger in. I thought it was a good thing. I didn't know at that point. I was like 80s, 84, 86, which means really you need to go to a hospital. I thought like, wow, 84, 86, you come home from school with 84, 86, this is really good. I'm doing well, right? I didn't think it was like alert. And so I didn't do anything about it. And then one day my daughter called and she said, where are you, Ma? And I said, I'm outside rolling in the snow. And she heard me say that, and I just have to be honest, I do love making snow angels. One of my favorite things, I still make it at my age. When the snow comes, that like when she heard I was rolling in the snow, she thought like, no, that's not even a snow angel anymore. That's like hallucination. And so she called Zale and she said, listen, I'm really concerned, and I also had a really bad cough. And she said, if you don't take her to the hospital, I'm coming down to take her to the hospital. So I actually, like that period, I think maybe because I had high fever and maybe because I really wasn't well. It's a very foggy period. Like I don't remember. Lots of times I'll ask my kids, like, what did I have and what did I say and how did you know I was so sick? Because I don't have a clear recollection of it. So I don't remember going into the car with Zale to the hospital, but I do remember getting to the hospital. They were very, very strict in March because it was just at the beginning, and rightfully so. So they didn't allow him in with me. So I went into the room myself, and they said they were just going to give me like some oxygen because I was having a hard time breathing, and also I was dehydrated. So they were gonna just give me some IV, which was fine. And so that's what happened. I was alone in the room and having all this stuff done, and then a doctor walks in and he said to me, hi. He said, I'm Dr. Owen. He's really cute. He said, hi, I'm Dr. Owen. I'm your doctor. I'm your doctor, and I just want to let you know, you're here, and then he said to me, I'm sitting outside and reading your reports. They had done tests. I think they had done something to see my lungs. And he said, so I'm reading your reports, and it says here that you're 61 years old. And I say to myself, as I'm looking as you're lying there, she's not a day over 40. So I'm coming into the room to see and check how old you are. Are you a day over 40? And I thought, like, oh my God, like, I love this doctor. He was sweet, he was kind, he was warm, and he was funny. And I thought to myself, like, honestly, it's so important to have the front line person. It makes it or breaks it. And so my whole experience with COVID really started with him. He was warm. I had confidence in him. He was sweet. And then he told me, he said, look, Rachel, I sent your husband home because all I want to do is give you some oxygen, give you some IV, and he'll pick you up within a few hours. And I said, okay, cool. And at that point, he left the room. I was just myself in the room. And 10 minutes later, he comes into the room and he says, Rachel, I need your consent for something. And I said, my consent for what? And he said, to go on a respirator. And I thought myself, and here was another gift from God. Thank God, like, unfortunately, my parents weren't alive at that period, but they had never been on a respirator. I'd never seen anybody on a respirator. I didn't even actually know what they meant when they said a respirator. Like, I was medically naive, which probably was really good because I didn't understand the seriousness of the situation. And I asked him one question. I said, do I need it to live? And he said, you do. And I looked at him and I said, you know what? I'm 61. I have 3 kids. I have, at that point, I had 6 grandkids, I think, 6 or 7, maybe 6 or 7. And 7, I had 7 grandkids. And I just, and people who love me and I love the world. And I just wasn't ready to throw in the towel. And I said, okay, do what you need to do. And he left the room. But the nurse came in, and the nurse, who probably understood rapidly the situation and knew that I clearly didn't, there was a TV on the ceiling, close to the ceiling, and she said, listen, she said, the TV doesn't work exactly, but it's connected to Netflix. So, Rachel, if you give me your password, I'll be able to connect you to Netflix. And I'm lying there thinking, I don't know if I'm going to make it tonight, right? And she's offering me to watch a TV, a movie on Netflix. And I said, no, it's really okay. I said, I couldn't think straight for my password. I said, it's really, really okay. Don't bother. And anyway, she knew. She came back 20 minutes later. I got your network. I got the password for you. I said, it's really okay. You know what? It's fine. I just need to be on my own. She left the room. And that's when it hit me wow, I'm alone here, going on a respirator. Don't even know what that means. But Zell's not here. My kids aren't here. And I don't even know what my future is going to look like. So the first thing I did alone in the room was I looked up. I love nature and I connect with it, but it wasn't any nature. I was in a hospital room. So I looked up to the ceiling and I just said, my first thing I said was, God, I'm in your hands. However you want this picture to look. You want it to go well. You want this journey not to go well. You want it to be fraught with difficulty and struggle. You know what? I'm in your hands. I have faith that you will somehow help me work this through. And at that point, I don't remember anything. I was put on a respirator that night, and I don't remember anything. Thank God. Some people had hallucinations and actually had memories of and really scary thoughts and stuff. Thank God I didn't, because that would have thrown me for a loop completely. And then for 10 days I was on a respirator. And then I remember waking up in a really large room, and there were glass doors and a lot of very busy people, or seemingly busy people, walking back and forth with a lot of papers and stuff. And I wasn't even sure where I was. I remember being very, very thirsty. And I was trying to get their attention, but they were so busy walking back and forth. Somehow I was able to get somebody's attention, and I asked for some ice chips and Jell-O. It was Erev Pesach that day, and I got it. And somehow they were moving me out to a hospital room. And so as they were moving me out, the doctor said to me, "Hi, Rachel. I'm Dr. Owen. I was your main doctor in the ICU." And he said, "Do you know where you are?" And I said, "In the hospital." And he said, "Yes." "Do you know which one?" I said, "No." He said, "Do you know what the date is?" And I said, December 2019. And he said, "Not bad. It's April 2020, which wasn't terrible." And then all of a sudden I looked at him, and all of a sudden he looked crazy to me. And I said, "Dr. Owen, are you okay?" And he said, "Yeah, why do you ask?" I said, "You have worms coming out of your nose and out of your eyes." And he probably gets this every time with everybody who wakes up from the ICU with hallucinations, right? And he looked at me really calmly, and he says, No, don't worry about me, Rachel. Thank you. I'm really fine. Don't worry about it." And then I was moved to a room in the hospital. And to me, probably I would say that was much more difficult for me than being in the ICU. The ICU, I wasn't aware of anything. The hospital was very, very lonely. It was a little surreal. I had a nurse who came in once. The rest of the time, she would just stay outside the room. And I heard that she was retiring and, where she was going to. But I think she was scared to be in the room. And, no comment to that. I think my meals came once a day in. And one day, And I even forgot that they gave me my phone back, but I didn't remember how to use it. And my hands had, tremendous tremors. So I really couldn't even actually like use the phone. I forgot I could use the phone. Certainly was going to open the TV, couldn't figure that part out. But I remember at that point one day I was in the room and I was thinking, honestly, I think like I'm in a movie, in a thriller movie. I think like they left me in some like hospital institution, a psychiatric institution, and I'm left in an abandoned building because I never saw anybody and I was so incredibly alone. And so I got scared. Like my mom started playing games on me. And so with no strength, I got out of my bed. I remember opening up the door. And I finally got out of the room and I started walking to see if anybody was here. Was I really dependent? Or was I really in a hospital room? And so as I left the room, I remember like there was a room very close by. I remember looking in, empty, didn't see anybody. So I kept on walking a few more steps. All of a sudden, like this shrilling voice of this, I guess, nurse, yelling at me, and she yelled and she said, "Get into your room right now. What are you doing out of your room? Get back right now." I didn't even know I had COVID. I didn't know I wasn't allowed to leave the room. I didn't know. So, of course, like, oh my God, authorities yelling at me. I quickly ran, I got back into my room. And that was it for a few days. And then I remember at one point I just wanted to get out so badly. It was just like nothing was happening for me in the hospital. And when a nurse came in, I said, I really, really want to leave. And she said, well, I'll be in touch with the doctor. And they did let me out. It was the end of the first day's Pesach, and they called Zell to come pick me up. I was in my Lucy nightgown, the hospital nightgown. I came home in it, and they actually gave me nothing. They gave me no papers, like nothing. Like, hey, her stomach is going to shrink because she had a feeding tube, so she needs to eat really, really little. She needs to eat small portions, like quite often. Never told me that. When you're in an ICU, your sleep pattern is completely disturbed. Never told me that. So I would come home and I couldn't sleep at night. In my nights, I could not sleep. I was incredibly weak. That the physio, when I came home, my actual first physio exercise was to put my right foot on the first step, put it down, then take my left foot and put it on the first step and put it down. Do that a few times, and that was your physio. So I was incredibly weak, but I came home really with no guidelines at all for Zale, the kids, nothing, like just the medication I was on. If I had more symptoms, go back to my doctor in the hospital. And so this is what I came home with. And so the first thing, so that was my story of the COVID experience. It was a very slow healing process, incredibly slow. My walking, my eating, my sleeping, everything took forever. Then to top it off, I had a second tremendous trauma for me, and that was I light candles every day, like a memory of a big rabbi, and I was weak. It was a month after I was home, and I lit the candle, and then I went to blow the match out, right? So I just bent down a little, and I did. And I don't know what happened. I must have been weak. I honestly, today, I still can't even tell you what happened, but I just remember seeing the fire erupt, and it just like from a little flame, it just like blew up, and I got shot here, and so it started burning my hair, and then it was my forehead, and then it went like it was coming down here. I burned my ear badly. It was going to my cheek, but then it really scared me. And this could be like a matter of seconds. And I remember being in school and you do the roll drop or something like that. We learned at home when we were small, and I started to roll, but it didn't put the fire out. And I really got scared when I felt the smoke coming through my lungs. Like then I thought like, oh my God, like I don't know, maybe I'll die, maybe I'll just choke to death. Like I really didn't know. Thank God I've never been in a fire, so I really didn't know what would happen, but I knew this was not good. And so I yelled upstairs, and thank God Zale was there. And I yelled, and all I said is, Zale, I'm on fire. And like what felt like an eternity for me, Zale says was 1 minute, so I'll go with what he says. 2 seconds. Still don't believe it, but okay. 2 seconds. He says 2 seconds. And so he flew down the steps in 2 seconds, and he pulled me to the kitchen sink, and he poured the water. He tried to put out the fire himself, also couldn't. And he just shoved my head under the sink. And I think I've cried once in my life this much, and maybe it was the loss of one of my parents, that it was such a cry, like a guttural cry, and all I said, repeated. I don't know how many times I repeated it. I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore. I'd reached my limit with COVID, and now with the fire, I just couldn't take it anymore. So like within no time, Hatsala was there, the fire engines were there, I love the firemen, and then the paramedics were there, and like everybody was like around, and thank God I went to the hospital. I just needed a wound nurse to continuously check my wounds that they were healing properly, but it really did put me out. Like that put me back a really long time. So then I think, okay, so I really had two very, very bad experiences. But what really did I learn from that? So that's really what I really want to share with you guys. The first thing was that, hold on, let me see if I can find my place. Right. Zell asked me because he didn't know my experience and I didn't know his experience. I said, like, how did you make Pesach? Like, without me, like every man needs a woman to make Pesach. How did you do it? And so he said, well, I called the rabbi. The rabbis were very lenient that Pesach. And he actually told me a funny story that he wanted to wash the dishes, make a dishwasher before Pesach, and he didn't know where the detergent was for the dishwasher. So he used the wrong detergent, and all of a sudden he comes in, and on my wooden floor, there's soap bubbles all over, like going around and around and around and around. He said, oh my God, this isn't funny. And so, actually, I don't know what time it was, but he actually called my daughter-in-law in Israel, and she said, send me a picture of what you put in the dishwasher, because I don't think you did something right? And you ended up putting liquid detergent. It does say dishwashing,
Yes,
but it
for
was
the
the
hand
wrong
washing.
one. So today, if you stand in my kitchen, it's a very sweet memory. You stand at a certain spot and like you're a little up, because like you did something to our floor, but he's forgiven. And then he asked me, and then I said, tell me what happened. Like, how did you know I was put on a respirator? And he said, I called the hospital because I wanted to speak with you to know, like, can I pick you up soon? And they said, I'm sorry, she can't come to the phone. And he said, well, I just dropped her off a few hours ago. I know she's there. Can I please speak with her? And they said, no, we're sorry, she's on a respirator. So I thought, like, whoa, that's really heavy to hear. And then he said, now tell me what happened with you. When they told you you had to go under respirator, what did you do? I said, well, I lay in the room alone, and I just said, like, Hashem, I'm in your hands. And that was my first lesson that I learned from it. And that is that when, that he said to me, he said, you say it so flippantly, that remark, that I just said, Hashem, I'm in your hands. He said, Rochel, in order to be able to say that, in order to really say that at a time of such distress, you really have had to have so much. You have had to build such a big spiritual framework for yourself throughout your life to be able to say that. And I thought to myself, it's really true. It was probably nearly 40 years of being raised by my father and everything he taught me, extra years being with my mother, what she taught me, my Bais Yaakov education, what it taught me, my rabbi, Manis Friedman, what he taught me. Nothing came from, it's not just like you wake up one day and you are a believer and you have a spiritual network. It doesn't work that way. You have to keep on nurturing and building it, especially for when the times are going to be hard. Because when the times are good, you're really good. Like, hey, you can fly pretty much on your own or feel you're on your own. But when the chips are down and when the struggle is in, you need to be able to have something bigger than you to hold on to, bigger than me, bigger than my husband, bigger than my kids. I need to hold on to a belief. And that really helped me hold on. And so I really believe, like I tell people today, build that framework, build that spiritual framework when the going is good, because it's so hard to hold on to it when the going is bad, let alone to build a framework when the going is bad. I feel it's impossible. And the second point that I took out of it is that even me, who was raised with so much, was privileged to be raised in my DNA with Torah, with the belief in God, everything that I was raised with, even I had a hard time holding on. And so then I learned a second lesson, and that is that within one person, you can actually have a lot of different emotions in the same one person. So part of it was, I knew a lot of people had died at that point. I was grateful to be alive. I was grateful that the fire didn't kill me, the COVID didn't kill me. I had family that would back me up. But truly, 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 at the same moment, I was so bereft. I was so depressed. I was so lonely. I felt so abandoned. I really did. And that is me, who has such a strong spiritual framework, which really taught me that you can actually be from, and you can be a committed Jew, and you can struggle, and you can question. Like, I really feel that needs to be normalized when the struggle is really hard, that it is okay to question. And for me, like, the metaphor is like, I felt like, honestly, I was in a boxing ring. Like, I was fighting for my life. Somebody was pushing me down, and I had to just get back up and try to stand up and keep on moving. And I always think, like, the name of the game is you just got to stay in the struggle. And for me, I was able to do that by contacting my rabbis. And that's also, and I know in Chabad it's so big, Mashpia. I so believe in it, and I believe women need to have their own, I have Rabbi Manis Friedman, he's my rabbi, he's a male rabbi, but a lot of women choose to have women people as their mentors. I think it is so invaluable. And for me, I asked different rabbis, and the reason I think sometimes you have to go to many places is because you need to find that one person that speaks to your soul. And it actually wasn't my rabbi who spoke to my soul with this. It was actually another rabbi in Toronto. He's the head of the Bubba community, and he told me, because I was feeling so poorly, that because of COVID and the fire, and I thought, oh my God, am I so bad? And God is punishing me, and Hashem, I could show you a lot of people who are even worse than me. I'm not so terrible, and I just couldn't handle it. It just felt so much for me. And he told me, he just gave me such a beautiful lens, and he said, honestly, he said, everybody's job as a Jewish person is to serve God. And every day you're supposed to wake up in the morning and say, how do I serve God better than I did yesterday? And he said, that's for everybody. That's for you, who had two really horrendous experiences, but that's for me too, who hasn't had one horrendous experience. So you don't have to take the trip of, oh, woe me, what is with me? Your job is, honestly, every day, try to be better than you were the next day, the day before. And I love that, because it really spoke to my heart, and it cleared my conscience so incredibly much. We learn things from Sfarim, from our rabbis. We know it logically, we know it intellectually, but there's something about when you actually really see it in your own life. And there's something in the talmid that says that before Hashem sends a plague, he already puts the healing into action. And I love theater, and so it reminds me of you're seeing a play, and there I am in the front of the curtains, not feeling too well, really feeling weak, very emotionally, physically, spiritually, pretty weak. But behind me, the second scene is getting ready. And so everybody in the second scene behind the curtains are getting into their positions, and they have, their acts, they have their scripts, they have their tasks they have to do, and all you have to do, all the person has to do is open up the curtains, and now we're at scene 2, and everybody's in action. And that is what really, really actually happened for me, that it was so clear for me to see that the minute I came home and I needed so incredibly much, it was there. My doctor, who I wasn't happy with, and I needed much more care when I was home. Somebody said, oh, you know what, I practiced in Sunnybrook with a great doctor. I'll go check if the doctor's available. Doctor was not, but said, I'll take her on. I'm her patient now. I had severe post-traumatic stress disorder because, one day you're healthy and your life is going in a certain way, and all of a sudden takes a real detour and hits you really, really big. So I was really struggling very much, and it's impossible to get a psychiatrist in Toronto, like nearly impossible, unless your father's a psychiatrist. Otherwise, you just cannot get anyone. And my kid is a psychologist, spoke to a friend, and she said, you know what, I'll put you together with the head of the trauma team, the head psychiatrist of trauma at Mount Sinai Hospital, who saved my life in many, many ways. People that, honestly, there was one girl that I wasn't even close to. Like, I wasn't close to her. And we did carpool together, and I don't even drive, so my husband did carpool with her. So it's not, I don't even have a relationship with her. I didn't even see her for 2 years. And when Pesach came, and she was making Pesach, and she just brought her and Sue Steinfeld, another person in Toronto, they brought the entire Pesach cooked for sale. He wouldn't know how to cook, and he didn't have it in his head to cook. And and I asked her afterwards when I went over to say thank you. I said, Helena, I'm going to be honest with you. I said, we're friends, sort of. Like, I see you on the street, I'd say hi, you say hi to me, but that's it, really. I said, like, what made you cook an entire Pesach for my family and send it over? And she said to me, and it was so pure and so simple, and she said, you know what, Rochel, I cooked Pesach, I had food, and I knew that somebody needed it, and I just rose to the occasion. I heard your family needed something. I figured they needed something, and it really, really taught me that, so many times that if we are privy to information or confidential information when people are struggling, then we were meant to have this information, and then we're meant to do something with that information. She got that information, didn't let it fly in the air. Oh, how sad, I really feel badly for her, and oh my God, I wonder when her husband's going to eat this Pesach. She didn't do any of that. She said, okay, I'm going to pack up my car, and she packed it up and brought it to the house, which was amazing. And so I really saw how there was never a pause with, oh, I need something, where do I go? It was like, that was it. I did not cook a meal because I was scared to touch fire. I had a gas stove, and I was scared to go to fire. So I didn't touch gas stove or cook, also because I was incredibly weak for 4 months. For 4 months, I did not go into the kitchen to cook. For 4 months, food was sent to me every day. Our Friday night lasted till Tuesday. Then we got dinner Tuesday, Wednesday. I think that lasted Thursday, and then we went back. I had somebody who sent me cleaning help for 4 months, twice a week. I couldn't walk up the steps. I could never think of making a wash. That was so out left field for me. And I remember I was so anxious one day because it was only my husband and I in the house, and I think she came the second time. We had eaten, we put the dishes in the dishwasher. There was nothing to do. My house was clean. It was COVID. Nobody was coming. And she knocked at the door, and I said, oh my God, so what are we going to tell her to do? She's here for 4 hours. I have nothing for her to do. Believe me, I found things for her to do over 4 months. But it was just everybody just was there when I needed them there. As a therapist also, we deal with people who are broken and people who are struggling. And if you would ask my psychiatrist what I said for the first 3 months, I saw her 1 hour a week. For the first 3 months, all I did was cry. And all I said was, I'm so broken, I'm so broken, I'm so broken. If you said, can I see your notes? She'd say, Rachel said, I'm so broken, I'm so broken, I'm so broken for 3 months. And then a long time after, it took a long time, of course, to heal. My whole healing probably took around 20 months. But I made a Suda Sada, I made a meal at Rochel to say thank you to God for getting me through this. And then as I was standing there, I was saying my story, all of a sudden I felt myself standing erect. And I said that, you know what, I'm not broken anymore. I'm not broken. And it really taught me a lesson that, when people come to me and are struggling, or when I'm struggling, or when people struggle in a life, you feel it's going to last a lifetime. When it's down, it's so down. And it's so dark. And it just opened me up so much to that. You don't stay broken forever. Nobody stays broken forever. You just don't. people heal. And I just want to say one beautiful thing that that I heard. I read this somewhere, and I said, "Oh my God, I loved it." And this is what really also left a tremendous impression on me. And it said, "Let me fall if I must fall. The one I become will catch me." And I think ultimately that's true. I think it's true. I think that when you have serious struggles, and let me be really clear, I hate struggling. I didn't like my struggles. I did not say, "Oh, Hashem, like, why not me?" No, I said, "Hashem, why me? Why me? Why me?" all the time. And I did not like my struggle. But at the end, I know that when you survive a struggle, and everybody does survive this struggle, they are not the same person they are walking into the struggle. They are completely a different person. And to me, like, like some people say, like, when you do a poster, what would you like your poster to say? And honestly, I would say to them, but I don't, because I know it would sound because it's not politically correct, I feel. But what I really would want them to say is my gift of COVID. But I would never have them say that, because so many people actually died from COVID, and so many people did not make it through COVID. But for me personally, who was made it through COVID, it was my gift of COVID, because every day, like I don't know if I'm quoting it properly, but I did read in one of the books that a kid once came over to the Lubavitcher Rebbe's wife and said, like, "What is the Rebbe's favorite mitzvah?" And she said, "You know what? Let me ask him. It's a really good question. Let me go and ask him." And came back a few days later and told the young boy. And she said, "You know what his favorite mitzvah is? To say Mota Ani in the morning. Thank you, God, for giving me back my soul." And I thought myself, wow, I don't know if it's okay, but I'm stealing it also. It's become my favorite mitzvah too. So I just think that we need to take from our struggles, we need to know our struggles don't last forever, that God is with us. I never ever, even though healing took a really long time, I never ever felt alone throughout my struggle, never. And I just want to say, for those of you, like, you guys don't know my father, but my father was world renowned, and honestly, I think he was such a mentor. He was such a mentor. The lessons that he taught me of, when he was during the war and he was escaping, and it took him a long time to escape, and all the trials and tribulations that he went through. But he did say, he said, "If I ever survive the war, I am going to devote my life to Torah." And he really did. He built Bais Yaakov Montreal, which is now called Bais Yaakov Hirschprung after his death. He built the whole Montreal community. All the aged, the homes of the aged are from him. Jewish General Hospital, kosher food. Everybody can get kosher food. Not unlike hospitals in Toronto where you have to order kosher food. That was from him. And sometimes I think that dedication, and I love a few stories, but one story I love is when Zell once asked my father, he said, "I don't understand you, Rabbi Hirschprung. You're in a whole bunch of worlds. Like, you send your kids, you build Bais Yaakov, and you send your kids to Bais Yaakov. But you know what? You teach in Lubavitch. You went to Brazil to give smicha for all the Lubavitch students. When Bells had the opening ceremony in Israel, when they opened up the huge building, they flew my father in for that. When he was in Montreal, he spoke for in Toronto, he spoke for B'nai Akiva. And they just said, like, Zell said, like, I don't understand you. Like, people usually have one pathway in life, right? So if you're Chabad, maybe you go to Bais Rivka, your brothers go to Lubavitch, you go to Pardes Chana, you go to Gam Yisrael, then you go on Shlichus when you're older, right? But it's, a pretty stable kind of sect where you go. But my father was all over the map. And Zell said, "So, like, I don't understand it. How are you all over the map? Like, what is your direction? How do you lead your life?" And he answered so beautifully. And I guess that is what really empowered me so much. And he said, "Whenever I have to make a decision in my life, I only ask one question. Is it good for God?" He said, "Is it good for God that I go to Bells and make them feel good?" Yes. "Is it good that I learn with B'nai Akiva boys?" Yes. "Is it good that I teach in Lubavitch and give them smicha?" Yes. "Is it good that I go to Baba? Is it good I do this?" And I just want to say something about my mother, because it is going to be your side. My mother was the perfect partner. My mother was a Montreal girl, so she loved French fashion, and she had great taste. My mother really, like, just phenomenal taste. And And, she loved good things, right? And we were 9 kids. I was 4 kids in, and we were 4 kids in a room. My mother could have used a beautiful home with this and that. Never pressured my father, never asked my father for any of that, even though it was something that did mean something to her. And she was just, in fact, the only thing she ever used to say when they went all around the world, of course, and they were put up in, of course, wealthy homes all over the world. And my mother would only say one thing. She would go to homes that had a beautiful rabbi study, library, right? So it was a really nice desk and some nice chairs and, some sparring there. My mother would say, I wish Daddy could have this. This would be so good for Daddy to have a room where he can invite people in and we can have Tim Torahs and Daddy could, stand on the ladder and it would be so beautiful, the room. And that was it. That was it. She didn't ask anything for herself but what really she would have loved, right? So all I'm saying is I hope you guys are I was raised in a privileged home. I don't think everybody is, but I think every Jewish person has so many virtues, and I truly hope that you will be able to take out of your families the virtues and the values that are really important, and not only use them, but really extend them and pay it forward.
Thank you.
And if you have any questions, you can ask. If you have no questions, you don't have to ask.
Can you be reached by somebody who had gone through COVID and has long haul right now?
Yeah, for sure. I'll give you my things. Because
Very
I was a very long haul. Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Can I write down that quote? You said something about quote or
Yeah.
can you repeat it? I'm gonna pull out my
Oh,
notes.
did I have
If
to
I'm
tell
falling, I'll be caught by what I
who
become.
wrote it. When I didn't know who wrote it, and so when I quoted it the first time, I asked my kids. I said, "Could you just Google it? Who
Right.
wrote it?" And he said, "No." I said, "Who wrote it?" And he said, "Who do you think wrote it, Mom?" I said, "The Dalai Lama." I had no idea who wrote it. And guess what? Googled it. It's the Baal Shem Tov wrote it. So I thought our wisdom, we don't have to go to Dalai Lama. Our wisdom is in our own.
Keep it in
our
house.
own Torah. Yeah, it's called Let Me Fall If I Must Fall.
And I'll be caught by who I become, right?
The one I become will catch me.
Right, there you go.
Did your father ever talk about his experiences in
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you could.
Your father, there's a beautiful book now that it's available on.
Yeah.
It's called Bais Yaakov Seminary.
Yeah.
They gave it out at one of the dinners.
Yeah, at the dinners. Yeah, we got it.
I have it. I read it.
It's phenomenal.
It's a beautiful book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really fascinating.
So you can answer about chochom.
Yeah, he spoke about, he didn't speak about the war, but he spoke about chochom was, first of all, he was just a kid. You have to be 18 to get in this business. And first day, someone came from Germany to ask Rabbi Hirschprung Newman. So Rabbi called him over. My father was 15. He said, "Listen, come here. Here's a shout. How do you answer?" He answers it. He goes, "What'd you base it on?" So, well, he just had this unusual mind, like not normal, like Einstein minds. He goes, "Well, here's 5 Gemaras. When you say this, boom, perfect, right on." So he became like very, very close to Mary Shapiro. When he was 18, then he had a job to travel Europe to give the test to get in. To get in, you have to know 200 like Gemara. And know much more about that. So I asked him, "Give me some of the questions, maybe I could do the test." So he said, "Okay, how many machlokas are there in those 200 pages?
Huh?
How many are Rabbi Shmuel? Like Rabbi Shmuel?" So he said the best story is a kid came up from a young kid, who was just bar mitzvah, and he said, "Talmid, how many we have 1 war and a half? We don't have kids." Kid comes up and says, "I'm ready for a mechanic." He goes, "Okay, kid, what do you got?" He goes, "Well, I don't know 200, but I know like 150. So he fires off the questions, and the kid answers them all. He goes, "There's a first round draft choice." okay, you come back when you're 18, there's a place waiting for you.
Nice.
And then it was just unusual there, the yeshiva didn't have a lot of money. Actually, how they paid the bills was, Rav Shapiro had come from his wife came from a wealthy family, so he took all that money, gave to yeshiva, and then he went to America during the Depression. He went there. It's not the best time to go fundraising. He stayed a year and a half, and then he agreed to take a job that would put him in Lodge in the big shul there, and he could go back and forth. But he died very young. He died in his late 40s, and he had an insurance policy, I think it was for $2 million. That paid for the whole yeshiva. And when he came back from America, he was very depressed. This is a good story. He was very depressed, and the boys said, okay, we're going to give him a gift. Here's what we're going to do. Tomorrow we're going to finish shots. Wow. The whole shots in one day. We're going to split it up. Everyone take what you can. And my father said, I'll take whatever you guys do. We'll finish it up.
Across how many?
I saw the picture. It actually hangs in there.
Wow.
Now it's a kosher hotel. And there's a mikveh there. And the shul, yeshiva, looks a little like this actually. And one of the side views is that picture where they had that dinner that the Rebbe came back. They had a little gift. Finish shots. Which one? Today. So these were like super learners, and they had a model of basic windows, a big model of one of the rooms. We only saw it in pictures, it was destroyed. And one other story, US. Oh, so when the mayor Shapiro final moment, he had and he knew he wasn't feeling well. So he went home, he asked his wife, went to the mikveh, he said to his wife, my child's close, and he invited his 10 closest students, which I thought was the closest, and he wrote songs. Who's the way to know this? Who are you? Came from. He's also a member of the Polish Parliament. He could have represented all the Hasidics. The other thing good was the Hebrew, like all the Hasidics. He actually sat in the Polish Parliament, which was pretty nice. It's a Semitic place. They many Jewish laws, but he don't fight. So he had them sing one of the songs and dance around him until his soul left his soul. And then the funeral the next day, there's many pictures of this, it's massive. And you'll see the notes that he wrote on top of his arm, Rabbi Shipiro's notes. So we have some of this from
There's a book, Blaze in the Dark.
Yeah. So you all know.
Yes.
Okay. So, but the yeshiva trained, you have to go be a Rav. Now, Rav Shapiro is an interesting story. Rav Shapiro was about to leave yeshiva, started another yeshiva, those who couldn't be Rav. So the half day you were a profession, like a carpenter or baker, and half day you were a profession. He said, now we have the elite rabbis. What are we going to do?
Are you nice?
That was the vision.
Are you nice?
He started that was finished. Yeah, now, I mean, wow, what a revolution.
Your father is not just seems to be, at least from the book, from volunteers, extremely even keeled.
Yes.
And
By the way, he didn't do that. He did 7.5 days, so that he would finish in a year. Every year he was seeing shots, and he died the night of the seeing shots. So
Wow.
every year they do a seeing shots in Montreal. On the day that he would do the seeing shots,
all right, thank you,
Yeshua.
everyone.
Before everyone takes off, Sliha, girls. Sliha. Before we take off, we have a Tinuk Shemishpah in Scotland who has us as her mishpia. So closest Chabad tour is an hour away. What would we advise you as far as getting mishpia? Thank you for the help. Okay. Love and light, y'all.